Thank you for being here. Thank you for making time to be here. This next session is going to be a little more casual, more of a conversation than a presentation. With us today is Emma Allen, the cartoon editor at The New Yorker, and Alex Garcia from Comics Kingdom King Feature Syndicate. Please make them welcome. Don't want to embarrass you or anything, but I am going to read your bio if that's okay. Emma is the youngest ever humor and cartoon editor at The New Yorker, a magazine famous for interlarding its serious long-form reportage with clever gag cartoons, several inch-wide boxes containing a black and white illustration, and a witty one-line caption to match. Ideally. What do they call them? Idea pictures in the contract? Is that what that is? Allen took on the position in May of 2017. She is the first woman to hold a role as cartoon editor since the inception of The New Yorker in 1925. Emma earned her Bachelor of Arts in English and Studio Art from Yale University. Emma Allen.
Hi.
Joining Emma today is Alex Garcia, Head of Social Media Marketing at King Features and ComicsKingdom.com. Alex, the maestro of audience development at King Features, differs from your average digital marketing guru with a keen intuition for user behavior. He lures audiences across platforms like a digital Pied Piper. I like that. A lifelong comics aficionado, Alex leverages his prior digital publishing experience at Barnes & Noble, along with his experience in guerrilla marketing, to forge his powers in analytics, SEO, and content marketing. Give it up for Alex Garcia, ladies and gentlemen.
Maestro,
the maestro, as Elaine says. So this session, we're going to cover how to expand your reach, engage your audience, and grow your fan base across a variety of platforms with the expert advice of these two right here. This practical session is going to equip you with essential strategies, tactics, and tips to maximize your success online, from crafting compelling content to leveraging trends and analytics, incorporating insights and lessons from other creators. We will empower cartoonists of all experience levels to more effectively navigate the world of online media. And we will touch on how AI-generated art will affect these strategies and how we further conduct our business online as cartoonists. I will be moderating this session, but really just keeping things moving. Civil, stopping these two from getting into fisticuffs. We also will be sharing a few cartoons that Emma and Alex have generously provided just to lighten things up. Actually, they're all social media based jokes. In fact, let's put the first one up this one is from the Lockhorns, John Reiner and Bunny Host. It says, whatever happened to just liking something without posting it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest? Nice, thank you for that one, Alex. So getting started, I want to just very, very briefly kind of get a sense from both of you on your experience in this field. Specifically, you've both come into, you at King and Comics Kingdom, and Emma, you at The New Yorker. You've come in at a very auspicious pivot point in the industry. Let's call it an inflection point, straddling the old media in print and new online. You both have very distinct and unique experiences in trying to not only curate creators, who primarily work digitally and online, but also trying to build some kind of engagement with the readers of that content. And that's it sounds simple, it's incredibly challenging and complex. So Alex, we'll start with you and then we'll move to you, Emma. Can you give it just a sense of your experience in this and what you have kind of planned with King Features and Comics Kingdom?
Well, of course, thank you for having me and allowing me this opportunity, I guess, to talk through this with you all. You're absolutely right. This is an inflection point. And really, I'm going to start it off by saying something that I say to Jason and to everyone that's kind of in the room. I think the challenge that we face, and really it is a challenge, the challenge that we face is converting our medium to our content to the medium, I should say, right? And meeting them where we are. And it sounds very, very easy in retrospect as you talk through it, but really the challenge, and I'm going to make the motion, is getting to this. And getting your content to this platform, this device that you use today, that you've been using this morning, that you're going to use this evening. And one of the behaviors and habits that I guess I try to hone in on one, my personal consumption, how I approach that, and how then can I translate something like the Lockhorns to get to that, right? And so the content is king. It's always going to be that. And I think we are benefiting from the fact that you are benefiting from the fact that you have that. right? You have half the problem solved. The other is getting to show it across the board and make it shine when there's like a million different pieces of content going on all over the place. And those are the tricks that obviously hopefully we can impart today, is how can we help you shine a little bit more in that. But for King Features, yeah, I think we've definitely, for the future, we're honing in on the fact that King Features has this legacy. I'm super, super humbled by the fact that I get to work at King Features now 2 years strong. But we are really trying to empower you as creators, right? We wouldn't exist without these creators. And so for our strategy, my strategy, every time I go to market on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, email, and so forth, I try to imbue the fact that this content belongs to King, and this content not only belongs to King because we own it outright, but this is a premier spot for this content. I highlight the fact that you are amazing and so forth. And that's really what I think the future is going to foretell us in terms of strat. Now, the tech is going to change, and we're going to talk through tech here today, but the tech is always going to change. But the strat should stay the same for us, and that's that it's creator first, and so highlighting our creators is key to me.
Yeah, I mean, so I took on my job as cartoon editor like 6 years ago, and the New Yorker has been publishing cartoons since 1925. Many of which don't really resonate anymore, but many of which still do. And I think right around when I was starting, someone in social media was just like, we should create an Instagram account just for New Yorker cartoons. And we were like, yeah, do it, great. And like, this thing instantly became, like, I think the New Yorker cartoon Instagram account has like 3.5 million followers. The New Yorker on Instagram has 8.5, but like that's just from us posting cartoons as they are, like unembellished, and many of them are not even like the new and timely ones, they're the evergreen ones. These are things like, we'll post a cartoon from like the 80s about a dog, and like I refer to cartoons, these like single panel gag cartoons, often as like the proto meme, because it's like, I has cheeseburger cat is not that different from like a cat cartoon, a great cat cartoon from the like 40s that ran in the New Yorker. Like we sort of like got out ahead of the curve there.
Or the Peter Steiner cartoon
Peter Steiner,
on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog.
Of which there have been many sort of iterations responding to contemporary events. So yeah, I mean, in some ways, it was easy to come in at this moment and just be like, well, throw these things out into the world on the internet and like see if anyone likes them. And it's like, oh yeah, everyone loves them. Like we have like 500,000 humor newsletter subscribers who like constantly are clicking through. Like 90,000 people are engaging with the caption contest every week. Like, it's.
You're saying 90,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
In some ways, it's not a difficult job to or a difficult transition to put this stuff out, because it is as engaging as it ever was, and it's very like quick to consume, visual, and increasingly, like a lot of our newer contributors, the way they have created a like cult of personality, or the way that they run their businesses, whether they are, illustrators, animators, they are on the internet as well. And so it's like we are often piggybacking in a way off of their, this carefully curated, tech savvy internet presence. So yeah, I mean, I definitely am working very, very, very hard, and I do a great job at promoting all this stuff on the internet. But yes, it is, I think, remarkably translatable, this thing that is 100 years old to this new era.
It comes back to something CJ was saying recently about the fact that cartoons, no matter what format they're in, she was saying that they'll just survive wherever they're seen, wherever eyeballs are looking at them. People enjoy them regardless. It's just a matter of
like sending it like a capsule to space, like the moon or whatever, and people are like, that's Peter Steiner.
That's what they should have sent out.
In space, no one knows you're a dog. Yeah. I do want to, you touched on something very specific there. I do want to show some of these cartoons that you provided us, because not only there's kind of a theme here. Alex kind of noticed it as well.
Yeah.
And I think call it the elephant in the room. We kind of hate social media. we resent having to figure this out, right?
We are tech overlords.
No one,
we
no
love
one
tech
loves
overlords.
social media, right? It's just one of those things we have to figure out and do. No one's like really enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's a great gag. Elizabeth McNair, is it?
Yeah.
Liz McNair. Hey, I'm just giving that the follower. That's great. It's one of those things that everyone that you speak to, every cartoonist, as you say, some of them have built literal empires, like businesses around their cartoons, their style, their voice. And yeah, sometimes, old media, say old media. May I call you old media? Elder millennial media.
Yes.
Coming in and kind of piggybacking off what is an already self-built presence online. And that's new. I mean, I don't think there were a lot of cartoonists back in the 20s and 30s who had their own cult of there are very rare few, I suppose, the Charlie Adams and the sort of Saxons and Arno, of course, Peter Arno is a perfect example. But those people were kind of brought to the world through the New Yorker as a conduit to reach their audience, whereas now it's kind of this almost like a collaboration in a way. But can you both speak to the fact that I know that King has some new creators who are webcomics creators primarily, who have sort of come into the fold and are part of Comics Kingdom. And I know that there are a lot of cartoonists from Instagram and other media that have come to the New Yorker in recent years under your tenure, which has been a credit to you because it's been for the longest time, it's been a very specific kind of set of cartoonists and styles, and now it's probably more diverse than it's ever been in the entire 98 years of publishing. It is difficult to curate the level of quality, the level of consistency and professionalism. We're dealing with it with our membership at the NCS, trying to weed out hobbyists from professionals. It's a really difficult dance to do. I would love to hear how you've actually been navigating those waters as far as like building some kind of guide rails, policies, procedures for that kind of thing.
Sure. So on my side, I'll say this. So I oversee about 27 individual accounts for King Features. With that, I've driven something like 10 million impressions and so forth. All the fun stuff that comes with that sort of tenure. So to scale that out, I'm into tech, so I need software to do so. That I think is what's really helping us on the back end in terms of flagging behaviors and things of that nature. I've been blessed to have our creators also not break the rules, or so to say, or go off the written path, if you will, or be too dark in that sense. But in terms of curating that content in a way that's manageable and scalable, I think at King we entrust that we're partnering with our creators and that they have their best interests as well, and we won't need to be like that kind of overarching level of check, I should say, but we're definitely there for support, right? And so, I'm always a free conduit on email and calls and so forth. And Alex, how do I do this? Or can I do that? Or can I frame this way and do that? And that's the kind of mechanics that we work with, as I do personally. But yeah, we're really, I think there's no way, and Emma, I'm keen to hear how you do it, but there's no real way to manage that through a singular source. And I don't think it should be, right? Because I think as we look at social media, specifically social media, but it's a void. And if you're going to trek in that void, you might as well have your own voice. And that's how you're going to build an audience, and that's how you're going to people that want to follow you and your content is by being who you are. And so I wouldn't even aspire to want to curate that for our creators. I'm definitely there to support, but not in a way to curate them.
Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm so, I have benefited so much, and I'm so grateful for the fact that both cartoonists curate and manage their own internet presence and are so generous when it comes to promoting the work of other cartoonists. So one of the things about editing New Yorker cartoons these days is that, the ecosystem is very different than it was 50, 98 years ago, in that single panel gag cartoons, there aren't a lot of, you used to be able to take your batch from magazine to magazine, and by the end of the day, you'd sell all the cartoons that you had drawn that week, and you could go back and pay off your mortgage in Westchester, and that. That is.
That's not how it works anymore.
Yeah, that's not exactly how it works anymore. And so coming in and wanting to explore other voices because I came in as a super fan nerd of this wide world of graphic arts that was so vibrant and like clearly thriving, and like web comics and graphic novels and memoirs were like, in boom times, even though the gag cartoon maybe was like feeling more like a niche New Yorker thing that, you weren't necessarily going to make a living selling gag cartoons to the New Yorker. So the fact that cartoonists have these, Instagram accounts often, or, whatever it is, this like online presence, made it so that I could explore like who is doing what and try to see what could be translatable and easily reach out to people who, maybe it's like a graphic novelist I follow posted something by someone else that they were really into, and I could be like, this style could be a single panel gag cartoon, or maybe a longer comic online too, which is like, doing more of that stuff as well. But yeah, no, so it's been great. And I'm so constantly shocked by how generous cartoonists are in this sort of relatively cutthroat industry in terms of promoting each other's work, and like the databases that people have put together of like cartoonists of color and disabled cartoonists and queer cartoonists just as resources for editors like me, and like making these things widely available online and sharing them across social media is like a hugely powerful tool, and like gives me access to so many people that like, yes, I also still like go to comic book stores when I'm in other cities and like peruse all the zine racks and like, go to, comic conventions and fairs. Like the physical version of it still exists, but the internet just like opens up a whole new world of being able to like connect and like cross promote and explore, I guess.
That's really interesting. That aspect of curating sort of a let's call it a pool of cartoonists to be submitting, because that traditional way of, as you say, walking around, what was it, Wednesdays, and with an armful of cartoons and going from the New Yorker to the Saturday Evening Post to every other magazine all the way down, and then hanging out at Pergola des Artistes and having the big lunch.
Miss the cognac, but
yeah. Yeah. But those days are done, unfortunately, for they were fun and they're done, and we're in a new era. We're in a new era, I know. I'm gonna throw up one more just in between here. It says, my rule is no screens after 11 p.m. unless democracy or fundamental rights are at stake. That's Zoe
C.
C.
Cartoon on a really bleak, I think.
Pulitzer Prize nominee Zoe C.
Roe was overturned. So,
One way again. This is Ivan and Mac. This is a collab. There's actually a lot of collaborations now at the New Yorker, which is great, having cartoonists collaborate. You got to try this new social media site before it starts destroying society. Did I mention there's a theme to these? Yeah. A little bit. So you both touched on two things that I'd really like to kind of delve into. The first is that unique voice piece. Not wanting to curate people to a house style, not wanting to curate people's voices to too much. You do have to edit. I know that is a really distinct balancing act between editing a gag so that it actually tracks and it's going to work, but not censoring and not being too editorially heavy-handed. And it's something that cartoonists discuss. I know art directors discuss it all the time, and editors. Can you speak a little bit to the fact that when people see what's working online, they see a Liana Fink, or they see a Will McPhail, or someone like Ed Steed, or they'll see a style that's very interesting and unique and distinct and fantastic. And it's not just the visual style; it's the voice, it's the gags, it's the comic voice. It's also just them. And then you see people thinking, "Well, I'll just ape that. I'll just copy that, and then I'll get 1 million followers on Instagram." Yeah. I know that that's a don't. And I want to jump into the do's and don'ts. So that's part one, is can you speak to that unique voice and curating your style to what you like and not what gets likes? And then the other piece is, you both mentioned just now that neither of you are cartoonists, but you're giant cartoon nerds. Yes. That's a really important piece. Yes.
Yeah, the nerds are important too, guys.
Yeah. Traditionally, syndicates haven't been full of cartoonists. They're full of people who are giant aficionados of cartooning. We have people in the room today who are just that. And Emma, predecessors of yours have been both cartoonists and cartoon editors, but you have this encyclopedic, and I know it goes way back to you cutting things out and putting them in scrapbooks, this encyclopedic almost knowledge of cartoonists that only ever grows day after day with you working in this role. But as the second piece to this, because I just want you guys to talk, I'd really love you to then touch on that aspect of things, that you're not working cartoonists, you're not artists, but you have this skill set of being able to cultivate and curate that kind of work. I'm going to throw it over to you both. Emma, do you want to start this time? Is that okay?
All right, well, I'm going to do the first part of that question, I think, which is about mimicking tone and like coming up with your own style. And I mean, I think that is something that I am like constantly, it's a constant piece of advice for me when it comes to new cartoonists starting to submit, which is like not to mimic what they imagine to be the tone of the New Yorker. I mean, the New Yorker is almost 100 years old. SNL is not even 50 years old. Like the generations of voices and styles that cycle through, and the number of people who say they only like the cartoons from when the generation when they were coming up, SNL cast from when they were coming up. Yeah, but it's just like this constantly evolving thing, and I think people, this sort of intimidating institution, they think that they should mimic their idea of a thing, this like wry drawing room. And the kinds of cartoons that make it through are the ones that are like incredibly surprising, show like a unique perspective, show like a new take on something that is either universal or like a just absolutely like surprising Dada idea, but like, you know, it's such a range of things. And so I think, the same thing goes on social media, that like Eliana Fink, for instance, has created this whole universe that is like, can only come from her specific brain. Roz Chast too, it's like this only, like every Roz Chast joke, you're like, what? Like from the mind of Roz directly to your desk, like no stops in between, like the PATH train here. Yeah, so it's like convincing people to like trust that and not believe that like imitation is going to lead to success. Yeah, and then you mentioned the like edits. It's like often, I'll like edit things to make them, punchier, or I'll edit drawings to make them more logical, or to like, exclude unnecessary detail. But like so much of my job is just being like, well, I really think like David Remnick would buy this cartoon if you started drawing your people with noses. He's really hung up on the no nose thing. Or like, yeah, Colin Tom for a while like had these characters that he drew that had like a really wide pelvic area. I want to say like it was like leg, long gap leg, which is certainly like a cartoon convention and like a stylistic choice. But like for some reason, David just like he was like, and we just like shrunk it by a tiny bit, and then it was like, yeah, these are great. So, but yeah, again, so it's like that on my end as an editor, that is some of what's going on, which is like the horrifying behind the scenes that the cartoonists never want to know about. But yeah, in the bigger picture way, like yes, it is.
I remember you making me add one line to a cartoon once that I had sold to the New Yorker. It was that boxing one, the fight night one. You said, David, listen, it's in, but David needs you to put one line.
By the way, I just blame David for everything. Whenever I'm like, here's an annoying
He's the full guy.
David, meanwhile, has never said anything about any cartoon.
Literally with one line. And then it was in, which was nice. Alex, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got lost in that too. I was just, okay. I'll add to that, like imitation definitely is a don't. And why that is like I said before, you're publishing to a void, and so you might as well publish in your own voice in that way. Incorporation is a yes. And what I mean by that is that trends are just trends, and that's true across the board, and that's exactly what they are. So what you see at this moment will be trending, and that's so forth, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean you should mimic your style to just stay to that. You can incorporate elements of trends to help elevate your content, or not elevate, but maybe just add to what you're doing. But definitely not to redirect where you are as a creator in your art form, on platform, off platform, or wherever you want to post it. I think individuality is going to be key for the future. It's key now. And so driving home that message in who you are as a creator in your art, second to none. That's definitely a do. Um,
And individuality is even so much harder now that we see so many things,
Yeah.
you know? It's
Yeah.
like,
And so you have to give yourself a spotlight to shine. And so that's what I mean about incorporation. Like, there's different things you can talk about. Definitely share many cat videos. Cats will always win, right?
and I was asking our social media team, I was like, do you have anything I can like say
Cats.
in this in this
Cats.
talk?
Cats.
And they were like, oh yeah, cats and dogs.
Cats.
So you,
It's like their one piece of
cats and dogs, that was their
They're like,
advice.
yeah,
Cats and dogs.
no.
Cats and dogs.
Gold,
So if you want to do cartoons for the new cats and dogs.
but on social media, they were like, yeah.
So I am going to get to the metrics and the analytics part. So I will get there with the social media team and with all of that. We don't have to go into the real nuts and bolts of it, but I do want to touch on that because it's really important, especially with the algorithm changing every 5 minutes and suppressing static posts in lieu of reels and video content. Speaking of static content, let's just have a couple more cartoons. What do you say? I do think it would speed things up if you followed my social media.
I published this as an ode to my therapist.
Who is this one by again?
It's a Hartley Lynn
Hartley Lynn.
or Ethan
On
Riley.
Amy Huang, who's a nominee this week. I'm trying to be more mindful of what's happening on my phone. Nice. And one more. Here we go.
Yeah, that's right. I'm an influencer, and I got some curated recommendations for you.
I want you to come in and read all 1,500 cartoon submissions to me each week. It's very
Who did
exciting.
this one? I love this style.
He shucks them.
Wow, really, really nice style. I love it. And looks hand-drawn, too.
Yeah.
That's lovely. So I do want to get into the analytics, but before I do, there is something really important that you've both already touched on with social media, and you've used the word engagement a lot. And I know that we, this morning in the business meeting, used the term engagement a lot as well, because when you go out to those Comic-Cons and you go out to, SPX and you go out to Comic-Con and all those things where you're engaging and you're going to bookstores and seeing the zine section, and then you reach out to them online, versus the way their fans, their readers, interact with them. It's the dynamic of not really seeing people in person versus dealing with people purely through the prism of either a DM section or a comment section or an email. It is something new, and it is something that people are having a real challenge. And I know that one of the don'ts that both of you have spoken about is don't feed the trolls, don't read the comments. That's all well and good to say, but cartoonists being cartoonists, yes, the reaction doesn't belong to you, but also cartoonists want to know if their joke landed, so they are going to check the comments. So it's good advice. It's also, cartoonists are always going to check the comments. It's just a thing. Can you speak a little bit to how you are dealing with that, let's call it the online disinhibition effect, the ability that this sort of screen in between each person, be it between the reader and the artist, or between you and the artist, is affecting that kind of ability to generate any kind of meaningful engagement. And I know that it is possible, and I've seen it, and it's fantastic and brilliant when an artist finds their people, and when an artist finds a shorthand with an editor is really fantastic. But it is a challenge. It is a real challenge, and it's something that I know you both dealt with a lot, especially in the last 4 years. So I wonder if you want to speak to that, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, that's part and parcel with where you are, right? And exactly what you said. Don't feed the trolls, don't feed the comments. But that's very kind of like high level thought about it. You're going to read the comments, and you're going to react to these comments. I think it's more along the lines of don't feed the trolls by legitimizing things that just that aren't really material, right? And so you take a negative comment, and we talked about this yesterday, where you take a negative comment and that incorporates into your style, into your drawing, and it permeates, and you start thinking you can't do this and you can't do that. There's going to be, I don't know what the platform numbers are these days, right? But I would imagine there's about 500 million people on Facebook at this point around the world. You'd have to imagine that some people are not going to like what you do, right? And they're probably going to be vocal about it. Who cares? Find the ones that do. The benefit of them actually, this is another side product that I talked about. One of the things that I live by this, and so in social media it's kind of the same virtue, is I'd rather you hate me than forget me. And so if you don't engage with my content, if you're not telling me that I did something wrong, then that scares me more, because again, we're in this void. So you want to have people participating, good, bad, or ugly, because that's actually going to be a positive byproduct for your content. It's going to get seen by more people. Now, that's not to say that you want to go ahead and stir the masses. We have people in the space in this country at this time that know how to do that masterfully well, right? And to a negative detriment of ours of society. But anyway, long-winded way of saying, comments are good for you. Comments don't need to be your goalpost, though. They don't need to be your direction in what you're doing. They can be indicators, but they shouldn't be guides.
Yeah, we just published a couple weeks ago a long, 2-page comic by Liana Fink about being on Twitter and like this sort of like in her early artistic career feeling like totally emboldened to speak in a way that she hadn't felt as like a young woman before, and like, you know, having the like reactions of people who were like so, you know, these like instant accolades who like reaffirmed all of her beliefs, and then sort of realizing the like how fickle and false that was, and like becoming, you know, feeling like more like she should just, you know, make work that she cared about. And I mean, that's, I think, probably a familiar tale to a bunch of people, in that you can get bogged down in reading comments and shift specific stylistic things that you're doing in this reactionary way, and then ultimately, you know, hopefully you have a good therapist, and then you learn to have a faith in your sense of self and your own ideas. But yeah, I mean, the email thing, I definitely feel like over the course of the pandemic, my job, which everyone's like, you got I want your job. I'm going to kill you for your job. Like, I'm always like, I got to look behind me on, you know, deserted streets because it's a good job. But like, yeah, I really feel like I became a professional emailer. Which is grim for me, grim for the people who are receiving these emails in this vacuum or void, or not receiving emails because they're just submitting things, because I, again, see 1,500 cartoons every week and we buy 20. 1,500 now? Yeah. Wow. But so, yeah, I mean, that is tough, and I feel very devoted as things return to pseudo-normal to trying to find times to actually meet with people, or at least Zoom with people, or have a phone call with people, which is like suddenly, like, I used to have like a total phone phobia, but you spend enough time on Zoom and you're like, oh, phone call would be great. Yeah, but it's this dual thing where, like, in some ways this shift to everything being digital, everything being DMs, being less in-person engaged, not seeing people every week on Tuesday, like, is a loss. But on the other side, it like opens up a much more democratic like world for cartoonists, and I think for New Yorker cartoonists, because it's like you don't have to be able to like come to an office building on a Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever morning in order to like have your work considered, and you don't need like a personal invite. You don't need an in from someone who knows someone. Like it becomes like a totally different thing, and like so I try to believe that the like balance of things being, you know, more Zooms and phone calls, and I mean, still, I love to go out to lunch. So if someone's like, "Can you meet for lunch?" I'm like, "Absolutely." I love a lunch. But yeah, so it's, you know, it's a toss-up.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's interesting that nature of the relationship, you know, with the creators and how that's developed, especially since the pandemic, and how phone calls now are welcome. That's amazing. What a thing the pandemic did. Phone calls are welcome again.
My hair for this, yeah.
So I do want to get into the analytics piece, but I want to frame it. Social media is like renting space on someone else's property. You don't own Instagram, you don't own Facebook, you don't own Threads.
No.
You right? Yeah. You don't own Twitter, X, sorry.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
You are...
We can't decide whether to like edit cartoons. This is an aside.
Yeah.
Had Twitter as a joke to X. It's like, no, we're not going to publish X.
Yeah. It's almost like a placeholder. It's like a TK. So the analytics are an important piece. And here is why I feel it's very important, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you can have 4 million followers on Instagram. You can have curated and built that following over many, many years. And then you go to promote a book or try to promote something, And all of a sudden, 0.001% of those 4 million people will see that post or will engage with it. Those metrics are very deliberate. The algorithm does this because they want you to pay to boost your posts. And I know that there is an art to that and a science to it that I want you to get into. I know that your social media team at The New Yorker and at Comics Kingdom, I know that you have a strategy about that. Also, it's changing so frequently that you're having to pivot and just kind of figure it out as you go. But also, I want to touch on the fact that you both have this other aspect, which is newsletters, right? The New Yorker's humor newsletter has way more engagement than the social media channels of The New Yorker. And that's not by accident. Meeting people that's one of their last most intimate spaces that you can meet people is in their inbox. So things like the New Yorker humor newsletter, Comics Kingdom, Go Comics, they have these, you can just, in the way that you opened up your morning newspaper, open up your email inbox and you can get your comics and your cartoons delivered. You can get great writing delivered, comedy writing. You can read Borowitz and then read the daily cartoon from The New Yorker, all in one email. And that's rather new. I mean, newsletters aren't new, but a daily humor newsletter is very new and the engagement with it is extraordinary. So I want you to speak to the analytics of both. I want you to speak to the fact that if you're going to commit time and invest time in building a social media following on whatever platform you find most engaging, Twitch, Instagram, whatever it is, YouTube, versus building a following on Medium or Substack or MailChimp or anything like that, or finding your people on a newsletter. Can you speak to the difference between those? Because I know that it's pretty pronounced and you both have metrics on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just obviously for King, in my timeline here, we've driven something like 2 million clicks back to our properties, right? And that's intentional. It's intentional. And the reason we do that for is exactly what you said. And this is an unpopular opinion, but these platforms are invested in you succeeding. They're invested in capitalizing off your successes. And what that means is that they're going to be beneficial to you to get your eyeballs and all that so forth. But when it comes, proof in the pudding, can I convert these million followers I've just gained to buy my book? It's not going to be that easy. They're going to suppress your following, right? I'll use Popeye as an example. Popeye has something like 9 million followers as an account on the King Features, which is crazy. He has that many classic toot. And it still freaks me out that I have the half brain that I tweet in Popeye's voice. And then
Do you ever dream in Popeye's voice?
Sometimes, yeah, and everything is TSK at the end, right? So much, it's really funny. But if at any given point the network gave me my 9 million followers and I can just address them daily, 9 million at a time, I'd be rivaling a TV network. And so you have to think about that. They're invested in making money off of your content in similar ways, right? And so a newsletter and things of that nature, I think, become powerful because, to your point, you have that space that's kind of like curated, people that have intentionally followed you. And so the engagement there is just naturally going to be higher than what you see on social media, irrespective of what the algorithms are doing to you and so forth, right? And touching on algorithms, you said this last year, and it's true. You live and die by the algorithm, and that means quarter over quarter we change. What I'm doing on social media now for our channels is vastly different from what I did a year ago at the same time, and it's just you have to do that from a social media perspective. As a platform to address the platform from my angle, but as a creator, like how do you navigate that? Like you're going to shift your strategy and so forth? No. I said this in our call before. I look at this almost as fishing, and I don't know how many people in here fish, but when you go out to fish, you can just go blankly into a lake, into the ocean, into wherever, and you can just set your reel, and you might have a chance of catching something. Now, good fishermen kind of know where to go. They know how to spotlight things. They know that I should probably go, if I want to catch catfish, in the shade near the reef. So when you approach your social media, approach it that way. Who are your pools? Who are these fish that you want to lure in? You start thinking about where am I going to post these things that make sense to have the most attraction of people that I can convert and bring over to me, to a newsletter eventually, or to another platform, or to Comics Kingdom, so that they can read your content and monetize, right? Because you are straddling this balance, which another unpopular opinion of mine is, when you're on social media, are you doing it for the likes or are you doing it for the money? Because they both aren't the same, and they both require some balancing, and neither is wrong, right? If you want the audience and you want the accolades and you want that exposure, chasing likes and engagements is totally fine, but understand you're going to sacrifice this lever, and then vice versa. So you have to be intentional in your strat and what you do there. And ours is obviously to cultivate audience there, but ultimately bring them back to a place that monetizes, and it's better for creatives. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about fishing, but that sort of made sense to me because when I was talking to the social media team about their strategies and techniques in promoting New Yorker cartoons, a lot of what I heard was that essentially, like, you are leading people down a rabbit hole. So the idea is that, like, people, a single gag cartoon is this, like, magical alchemical thing where it's like you see the image, you see the words, and, like, sparks joy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so fast acting. Often it's like people then want more. So it's like, you know, it's sort of like fishing, the lure. No, but there is this sort of, I think, like funneling of people, this like teasing of people, and then like leading them into like a more engaged experience. And what I heard from social media was that people will spend a huge amount of time clicking through slideshows of cartoons and, you know, voting on the caption contest. And so yeah, it's about, like, I guess there's an element of converting like a sort of quick fix pleasure of seeing something into like a devoted thing. And maybe it's like you pay for a newsletter or yeah.
And you've got to make it to that primary in your inbox, right? Because if you're not in my primary, it's very hard for me to get to you.
So the only algorithm that you're dealing with in newsletters really is the spam filter or the Gmail primary. You want to get in that primary filter. You want to confirm the recaptcha, all that stuff.
I'm in there.
So there's a million directions we could go from here, but I want to break it up with another cartoon because this is how our brains work. Matilda, who did this cartoon?
Borgstrom.
Okay. I can't wait for it to be 5 p.m. so I can go from looking at work stuff on the internet to looking at non-work stuff on the internet. Very good. And this is Emily Flake. My followers expect higher quality vacation content than this. Backseat driver. Backseat influencer.
That one hits home. That one
hits home, right?
That one hits home. That one hits home. That one hits home.
Yeah, do something crazy.
Yeah, that one hits home. TikTok.
So I do want to talk about a little bit. There's Matt Inman did a fantastic series, I think last year, and it was something like 10 things I learned from being a creative artist for the last 10 years on social media or on the internet. And the reason I think that's really distinct that he did that at this point is it feels like we're at the end of a bit of an era with, you know, algorithmic driven websites and stuff kind of coming to a close. The BuzzFeeds and those kinds of websites kind of closing shop, and the Nib recently. I think last week Matt Bors closed that chapter officially, and the Nib sort of represented an era from sort of the early sort of mid-ish 2000s through to 2023 of this I want to say generation, but like school of cartoonists who are contributing to the Nib who hadn't been seen anywhere else before then and have since sort of built a large audience through having that. But it feels like it's the end of an era. It's the end of that era, and a new one is kind of beginning. And it's subscription-based models like Substack and Patreon, and less sort of advertising-based kind of social media. People are moving away from platforms because they trust them less, as if they trusted them to begin with. But Matt says something really interesting and important, and I want to share it. With his permission, I have got. Make people laugh really hard. Tell stories that get them lost in your world, rabbit hole. Write music that makes them happy, sad, or somewhere in between. After you've done that many, many, many times, then consider asking them to buy a t-shirt or something. Enrich their lives before you enrich your own. Give more than you take. And if you're able to make a living at it, don't feel too bad about it. Therein lies the fundamental question. How can art stay genuine while simultaneously becoming successful? Yeah. Successful, that moving target of what successful means. The answer doesn't lie with the fans or the critics. It lies with the artist. Is the artist still creating things that they love? Do they find its creation meaningful? Does it fill the artist with gratitude that they get to do this for a living, or is it drudgery? Does it make that gloomy little organ inside their chest incandescent with wonder? then who cares how successful it is? A song could have 1 billion downloads on Spotify, or it could live and die on your banjo on someone's porch. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is how it makes us feel. And that brings us to everyone finding their enough, right? There are cartoonists who want to be stratospherically successful. They want to be the next Peterano or whatever. That's an old example, but they want to have this kind of career where they are ubiquitously famous and successful, right? Which I think nowadays, with the slivers of pie being split up thinner and thinner and thinner into more specific audiences and niches and tribes, let's call them, it's just, there's no consensus fame. There's no consensus comedy. There's no... It's like SNL. It's wild that's still even going because of the idea of consensus comedy. So I would love to get both your insights, just as fans of cartoonists, but also in your roles, of kind of how much that has changed, especially these last 10 years, but how much that has changed.
Oh, that's changed tremendously. I mean, you said it in a nutshell, and I love that. You said it beautifully just now. Just think about entertainment, right? And we talk about this in the office, but like, there's no more water cooler TV, right? There's no more that Game of Thrones moment where everyone's watching at the same time with subscriptions, with these platforms and how they work, right? You know, if you've binged the whole thing, and I'm catching up on episode 2, so we're in different realities just on one piece of content that we know is amazing. Now multiply that across, you know, the multitudes of content that we have and all that stuff. So finding your fish, that's really what's key, right? And so they will stick to your pattern, right? And they will go ahead and coalesce on a water cooler about your content. And that's what's really key, right? And to your point, there's some creators that want to be stratospheric, there's some people that, you know, that don't. I straddle the line of always thinking about the commercial aspect, right, of this, and there's a bunch of different ways this can break up $100, right? You can have 10 people giving you $10, you can have 100 people giving you $1, you can have, you know, 20 people giving you $5, etc. You just have to decide what's more valuable to you and understand the work that's going to go behind that to get to that. I would always prefer the 10 people giving me 10. It's just, it equates to the same, and they're also going to be way more engaged, I think. But yeah, I mean, just going back full circle, it completely changed, right? And it's because the tech and society and the algorithms have shifted us to the point that, yeah, it's a matter of finding your lane and not worrying about whether you have 10 of them, 10 different lanes, or you've achieved this mass success that incorporates, you know, 90 different audiences. I don't think that should be a goal for a creator. I think you want to maximize your audience and find your fish.
Yeah, and I mean, back to the point of, for New York cartoonists, it not being feasible to make a living necessarily doing single panel gag cartoons, like just for print media. Like, the role of cartoonist has become like the role of a sort of expert hustler. Like, you have to have so many different like tricks going at the same time. And so, like, the only way to live that life, I think, and have it not destroy you is to, like, find the like, hustles you want to do that give you great joy. And, like, you not worrying about creating some, like, cohesive, like, business card title thing that, you know, is the thing that you do. But, like, I mean, most of the cartoonists that, like, work, you know, are contributing work these days, and certainly, like, the youngest generation of incoming ones are, like, you know, write for late night, or, you know, like, our children's book illustrators, or all of those things, like, everything, just like 10 different, everyone is a multi-hyphenate essentially. And so I do think the, like, element of joy is so important. And when it comes to social media, it's like I think, obsessing about, like, conversion to something, because it's like the platforms are constantly shifting. They are owned by these evil mega overlords. Yeah, so I mean, I think there too, it's like posting things that made you laugh that maybe didn't sell to the New Yorker, but you're like, yeah, you know what, I drew up these 8 other ideas, like, I'm gonna post them. And then having people find those things and be like, hey, like, I maybe saw one of your things in the New Yorker, but, like, whoa, I love all these things that didn't even make it. Like, I love delving deeper into your weird worldview.
Nerds love that stuff.
Yeah.
Nerds love that stuff.
Yeah, which is also great for me, because it's like, yeah, only being able to buy 20 a week and, like, lamenting the lack of this like robust ecosystem that is rewarding people for all the additional work they're doing. It's like, I think it's good to see that people like hashtag rejected New Yorker cartoon. It's like, it's great to
That's
see
a
that.
very popular hashtag.
It's great to see that because
I'm adding that to my list.
it means that like people are getting to engage with the stuff that doesn't always make the cut, and the stuff that's, people love the rejection collection that Matt Diffie put together. It's like, and sometimes there's a good reason why it didn't end up in the New Yorker, and sometimes most of the time there's not. It's just bad math.
David doesn't like no noses. That's why it didn't end up in it.
I know. I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna, like, everyone's gonna have like such pronounced noses in next week's badge.
That's a new hashtag. No
through the
noses.
grapevine.
So it's all well and good for us to speak about all the information, but giving actual practical advice or kind of some insights that might help, we are going to throw it up into the floor for 10 minutes at the end. We're going to touch on 2 more topics. One is practical insights and advice, and then we'll touch on AI very briefly. Emma, you had mentioned a really interesting thing when we had spoken, and that is that you generally want to pick one platform or one thing, and you did just kind of sort of touch on it a bit, that pick the place that you want to invest the most time, and you want to just kind of, don't try and be everything to everyone and spread yourself so thin that you don't actually have time to do the work. If you find that you're getting more engagement on Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is, you kind of double down and go, all right, well, that's where I'm going to invest my time. Or if it's on a mailing list, great. All right, I'm going to do Substack, or I'm going to do whatever. You had mentioned that when you post things on social media, things like Facebook, for example, you have to understand how the preview is going to look, because it can cut off very important pieces of visual information as well as written information. Do you want to jump in on that one?
Yes. I mean, this is a sort of like pick your platform for the thing that you are promoting, and also be aware of how it's going to appear in the context of everything else around it. I mentioned very specifically, there was a Daily Shouts piece. I wrote down the title. That was, "It's time for Hillary Clinton to gracefully bow out of public life along with all other women," was the humor piece. And it cut off right before "along with all other women." So it just read on Facebook, the New Yorker published a piece called "It's time for Hillary Clinton to gracefully bow out of public life." And understandably, I think people were upset. Although it also goes to show that literally nobody was clicking through to the article. They were only reading the headline and maybe the deck. We also had a thing with like Andy Borowitz.
It's like red, it says satire.
Yeah, like Andy Borowitz, who I edit as well. Like, it's like this is before I was editing him, but there was like a piece about North Korea that got published that was like, North Korea leadership not famously known for their sense of humor, but there was like, totally took it literally, and we had, I think it was Evan Osnos was like in North Korea reporting a major story at the time. I'm like, we almost had like an international incident. So yeah, I mean, all to say, when it comes to comedy, it is ideally often subtle, and you don't want to spend a lot of time calling it out. This is another thing the social media team said, like, don't put a hat on a hat. Like, you don't need to make a joke as like the lead up to the joke that you're posting, because it often will be lamer, and water it down. But yeah, be aware that as you post these things, they take on their own life and can be shared. There's another one, it's like signs that your like boyfriend's masculinity isn't toxic, that like was just like he orders a glass of white wine when he like goes into a bar to use the bathroom, but like Breitbart picked it up, and it became this whole like alt-right like rallying cry about like wokeness. But yeah, so it's like, I mean, in some ways you let your children walk themselves to school, and anything can happen, but it's like having a little bit of like taking a moment before you let them out the door to, make sure they have their gun in their backpack.
Oh my God.
Sorry. Yeah, really dark.
Alex,
that's a hard one to follow. Yeah, I mean, I think about mechanics a lot when we talk about the preview, and when I say like getting the medium right, like translating to this. Finding your channels, I think, is probably the most important part of that, right? And so, is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it Snapchat? Is it Threads? I'm sorry, did I say Twitter? X. Is it Reddit? Is it this? And so I just laid out 7 different platforms, and the idea that you're going to be on all and be successful across all, that's a really high goal. And I'm not going to set the limit on anyone in this room or beyond who hears this. What I would say is just find, again, going back to the fish, find who's actually participating with you and in a way that you feel comfortable doing so, right? So if your content is horizontal, let's say you just do Sunday panels, that's going to be a really hard translation on Instagram. I'll just tell you, it's going to be pretty hard because you're dealing with this screen, you're dealing with this sort of device, and you're dealing with that sort of landscape, that sort of space. So is that right for you mechanically? Maybe not. Don't focus on that. Maybe it's Facebook. Maybe it's Reddit. Reddit is a gem. I love Reddit, right? And so because you can find your niches on Reddit a lot easier, I think. But yeah, and then one of the benefits, right? People, I'm going to say TikTok. I'm going to go into the TikTok world because it's the bane of my existence, and my son loves it, right? And
I purposefully didn't bring up TikTok.
Yeah, bringing up TikTok, and we don't make video. Like our content isn't video. It doesn't easily translate. But what I find on TikTok now specifically, I'm super happy they've done this, right? They allow you to upload images and do stories, and you can do carousels on TikTok. So the medium translates. It's Instagram again in that way, right? If you have content that can go there, it's an easy mechanism. And you want to chase eyeballs, obviously there's a lot of eyeballs on TikTok. Do so, right? See what happens and let that channel grow. In 1 second.
Carousel posts are where you swipe through the series of images instead of it just being one image.
Yeah, so Instagram allows for different formats, right? You can put up your horizontal strip in one 1080 by 1080 block. You can have a bunch of white space all over the place. It's not an ideal experience. If you're very text heavy, someone's gonna have pinch and zoom, and if they're having to do that on Instagram, you're lost. They're not gonna do it, right? And so what you wanna get is that whole block, that whole 1080. Again, mechanics, that 1080 by 1080. So if you're doing a 3 to 4 strip panel, you wanna break it up into those blocks and have people swipe through to read your panel. And that's the carousel.
Yeah.
No, and I think also, there's the mechanics, and then there's also just like, especially I feel like with young people for whom social media is like so like native and
digital natives, I think.
If you are like insincerely trying to make something for a platform that you don't really get, it just falls so flat. And like TikTok, I feel like that is especially true, where it's like people, I saw this at Condé Nast, like people trying to suddenly like leap into this sphere that they don't really understand and manufacture something that's like very polished and like created for it is just like a disaster. And like meanwhile, they're like
same.
Like random kids, random like grandmas on TikTok are huge stars because it's like they're just doing something that's very sort of like heartfelt and real.
Right.
And it's funny to think in social media being a space where you have to sort of be real, but like you have to be like I think like rather like you have to like get a feel of the space and like figure out how you exist in it versus trying to make a thing that fits the box.
Exactly.
I found this recently. I post like incredibly dumb things on Instagram. It's like the only social media channel as a person am on, in part because I'm just looking for cartoonists. And I didn't realize that in the whole X transition, they just were automatically also posting on Facebook, which I haven't been on in like 15 years. And it was just like all of these like family members, like third cousins and like middle school teachers were just seeing these random photos of like dumb signs and like garbage on the street that I was posting on Instagram, which felt very natural for me on Instagram. My following is like, we love seeing the dumb stuff you see around New York City. And like my middle school teachers were like, are you okay?
Did you drop your phone?
After 15 years of not posting anything, now you're just posting like blurry photos from the Jaws play you just saw. Like, we're really worried. Yeah.
So that's amazing. So I do want to touch on the big crazy monster in the room, which is evolving every second and getting exponentially more ubiquitous. There are, as you mentioned, Emma, digital natives, people who have only ever known a ubiquitous internet, who have only ever known this screen, right? Alex, you have kids, right? The this screen, I mean, this space that we used to have for a comic strip is now, it's on a big black screen.
It's the craziest thing. Like, I'll sit here and,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry to cut it a
No,
second,
no.
but like, if we talk about video and consumption, right?
Yeah.
Forget comics, just like entertainment. I'll buy them a TV this big, and they won't watch
Yeah.
anything on this. They'll
Yeah,
rather
they'll
watch it on their phone.
Yeah.
And it's the most mind-boggling
With
thing to me.
captions,
Yeah,
too.
I'm like, this thing is in 19K.
Yeah.
Why won't you watch it then? No, they want it on their phones.
Yeah, they want to go. It's this, right?
it's that.
And that's the audience that is coming up, and that's who you're catering to. Is this? I admitted to Alex, this is kind of embarrassing, but I'll admit it. On my drawing board is a photo of a phone, because when I get really close to the drawing board and I start doing really tiny details, I look and I go, shit, no one's going to see that. That's just, so I have to kind of remind myself what medium this is going to be looked at on, and go, yeah, just, take it easy on the detail for a minute.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about AI. And I know that it is a divisive and very hot topic. I know that Sarah Anderson and Carla Ortiz and others have filed a class action. Other cartoonists and artists have filed a class action against OpenAI because of the way that it scrapes certain data that isn't necessarily available. Well, let's call it a legal gray area. I look at comic artists. I look at Brad Geiger and Dave Kellett here, who have been web cartoonists for a long time, and I think about people who have got this body of work all online, and have now just kind of had to come to this quiet accommodation that at some point it's been scraped to train AI generators like DALL-E 2 and Midjourney. We don't have to get too much into the weeds about it, but it is going to affect the way that we conduct our business in the coming years. So I did want to get a sense from both of you as to your positions on how to actually deal with that. And Emma, I am not envious of your position that there may well be someone who is cheeky enough to try and submit a cartoon to you that was generated using
So many already.
DALL-E 2 and Midjourney. I didn't want to preempt it, but
I had so much fun with DALL-E 2. I just kept typing David Remnick and dog, New Yorker cartoon. And they're horrifying stuff. I mean, so far AI, is bad at humor. In part because the thing that makes a joke funny is so sort of like intangible, like elliptical, like it's that being said, people have submitted a lot of AI-generated, very bad cartoons that we have not bought. And there also was this whole thing where currently the New Yorker caption contest submissions are on GitHub. They're available. And there have been projects to train AI to make better jokes based on the this scrolling list of cartoon caption contest submissions, which I think is hilarious because, I hate to say this, but most New Yorker caption contest submissions are deeply unfunny. So
I'm shocked.
unfunny. I really feel like we're doing good by having this, training process, because it's we're setting the robots back. They are being trained
by
at
dentists in
bad-
Westchester.
Yeah, bad jokes. It's if they were to be training, the robots, in my mind these are actual robots, with actual New Yorker cartoon captions, maybe it would be more successful, but also maybe it wouldn't, because it's so, again, it's some of the greatest, Life Without Mozart. What could a robot learn from that incredible cartoon? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate how it's rolled out and what AI has launched as. I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for society as a whole if it's implemented right, and you can say that, throw it out there in the wind. We can trust that it will, right? Hollywood has told us otherwise for about 20 years. But yeah, I think from a cartooning standpoint, I'm glad the class action is happening. I think it's right. It's again, going back to the rollout. I think it's unfortunate that all of this data has been scraped and there hasn't been the pronouncement or the intentionality of making sure that everyone is treated fairly in that process. And so, going forward, I hope that continues and it gets rectified to that extent. But I also think, we doom and gloom AI. We're very, very, very scared of it to some extent. It's going to be disruptive, and that's just a point-blank thing. It's going to be disruptive to society at large. But I think it's also going to present a huge opportunity. I'll talk to you about this. You kind of segueing to what you just said there. I see it, and I believe it to be true. This is going to be an opportunity to individualize and showcase what isn't AI, and drive more value to the fact that this isn't AI. Right? The New Yorker is not purchasing AI content, and that's intentional. Like, there's a reason why we want to showcase that this is real art. And so with that, my hope is that rising tides, the values go up in what we're doing, outside of what AI is doing. And it's just a stark reality. It's going to be disruptive across the board. At King, we're always going to be about cartoonists first, right? And so that's how I feel about it.
That's always good to hear. Cartoonists first. That's good. Yeah. We are going to throw it open. I'm going to go through the last cartoon here. Colin Tom. I've never been happier. Living under a rock. There's that pelvis again, that Colin Tom pelvis. Good night Twitter, good night Instagram, good night Snapchat, good night Reddit, good night Tinder, good night Pinterest, good night Facebook.
I had to fight the copy department so hard
Is
to
this
not
Julius
put a comma
Suits?
after good night.
Oh yeah,
to,
nice.
to mimic the actual book, and they were
Yeah.
like, but there should be a comma.
Your copy editors, the style guide must have been, yeah. What's again, the style queen? What's her name?
Comma Queen, Mary North.
The comma queen, Mary Norris.
She's
My
retired
favorite
now.
thing on the New Yorker, apart from the cartoons, is that red pencil of hers. Okay, so we're going to throw it open. I'm going to bring this mic out. We've got a little bit of time before our next session. If anyone has any questions about what we spoke about, please put your hand up. We have one at the back here. I'll come right back to you in one sec. We've got Isabella Bannerman over here. Isabella.
An AI question. I had just been looking up different things, and I saw that the University of Chicago has developed a software that I think they're calling Glaze, and it allows artists who are web-based to add sort of a very sophisticated watermark to their artwork, so that if somebody tries to reproduce it through AI, it just comes out looking like mush. It doesn't.
That's so cool.
That is great.
And so I was
That is
just
great.
wondering if anyone else had heard of it, because it sounds really interesting. Anybody from Chicago or anything like that?
Well, it is. Have you guys heard of Glaze?
I had not heard of that until
It's a
right
digital
now, but
watermark.
I think that's
yeah.
so good.
But I also,
yeah.
and talking about what you were saying about AI also made me think about, the more like basic fact that when you're posting your cartoons online, very often people can just click
Yeah.
and drag and print them on T-shirts and republish them.
Yeah.
We recently had a conservative newspaper that had just been photographing and reprinting New Yorker cartoons on its pages. Anyway, it's the watermark thing is.
That's
AI,
awesome.
AI sounds so terrifying, but it is a problem that is sort of a problem we've already been facing when it
Yeah.
comes to just posting your work
Yeah.
on the internet and then losing control over
Yeah.
it very quickly.
Yeah.
So that
King-
sounds awesome.
At King, we engage with pick rights.
Pick rights,
Same,
yeah.
same sort of thing. Right? We chase down, content that's been shared without our permission and all that sort of stuff, and our designs. But yeah, I think what AI is changing is going to be the speed to it. So I love that there's a reverse AI.
Yeah.
A little watermark on it that's just like, okay, yeah.
I'm gonna plug something. The NCS actually paired with the Graphic Artists Guild and about 10 other organizations in March, and we did an online media advocacy summit about AI and machine learning art. And one of the things we discussed was Glaze, because it was in its infancy back then, and it's now actually in beta. They're testing it. A lot of artists, really big artists who are being scraped online, are using it on their work, and it's working. So far, so good.
That's
but
great.
yeah,
That is
fingers
great.
crossed. You had a question. What's your name, by the way? Eric.
See how this goes. Hello. Hi.
Eric.
So I had a question about Comics Kingdom.
Yep.
So in the past, you always hear stories, like if you want to get a stripper panel in the syndicates, 5,000 new submissions a year, you pick like one or two. But Comics Kingdom could technically, you would never do this, run all 5,000 submissions if you wanted to, because it's kind of limitless. You're on the internet, basically. So I'm kind of wondering if that's opened up the barrier of entry or anything, and if it's still tied down to the old business models, or some new stuff going on there.
Well, yeah. So there's a lot of new stuff going on, actually. We are moving to open up submissions to make it more, not democratic, but actually scale out, right? We're very intentional, not to the level that New Yorker is, but we're very intentional about what we want to bring on, because I think we want to drive a premium experience across the board. So there is this world where we allow for 5,000 submissions to come in at any some point. That's not to say 5,000 things are going to be great. And we think that what we put on our platform, we want to be great. So we're always going to curate that. But definitely, we're making moves now that I can't announce, right? But we're making moves now to kind of open that up, to scale it out in I think, a more meaningful way.
Right. If you're sticking around on Friday, 11 a.m. podcast Comic Lab. It's going to be down on level 3 with Sheldon's Dave Kellett and Brad Geiger. You have a question?
I did.
You do.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for your time and insights. My name's Dave. I had a question for you because having somewhat been a native for the last 10, 15 years on social media and finding it the efficacy of Twitter at first was wonderful. I could convert those readers to, in some ways, monetizing them, in some ways making, more of a physical commitment to the comic strip. I found in the last 2 or 3 years that it's harder and harder in sort of a grain hopper fashion to move a mass audience of 400,000 people, 40,000 of which could become interested, 4,000 of which I could actualize some way. I'm curious from a corporate perspective, what you are finding works now getting around algorithmic filtering to get someone from being a casual reader to a committed reader, and then from a committed reader to some way being monetized on the corporate level, either joining a subscription, buying a New Yorker collection, buying a King Features book.
Yeah.
What's been working for you in the last 2 to 3 years?
So at King, we're obviously going down the subscription model. Right? Comics Kingdom is in that sphere, right? In that space. So what's working for us is actually driving to that subscription. And what we do is kind of what Jason was talking about before, where we're giving out a lot of content. We give you access to a lot of content and kind of build that habit, if you will. And then in the hopes of refining down to that subscription. And we're positive year over year for the last 3 years straight with tremendous growth. And what we're allotting for in the future, I think, as well is gonna carry that mantle. But definitely we're down that funnel of trying to pull down from 400,000 to 40, right? And getting them into subscriptions. And 40 is a very small number, but yes, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and this isn't really my area of expertise, but I do know from like the social and audience development team that for the New Yorker, which is also trying to turn readers into subscribers, that comedy is huge for that.
Mm-hmm.
That people want to be able to endlessly scroll through cartoons, and when they hit a paywall, like very often the conversion comes from comedy, and only sometimes are people like, I clicked on this thinking it was an actual article, and now I've hit the paywall, and the whole thing was a joke. Yeah, I do want to say too. I mean, you said for the last question, in terms of like who breaks through into the hallowed halls of the New Yorker as a cartoonist, like our open submission slush pile, if you will, like Ed Steed came through it. Zoe C., who was just nominated for a Pulitzer, came through it. So it's like, I mean, I know throwing your work into the ether, even if it's my inbox, let alone a slush pile, is like very discouraging and feels impossible. But there is like, I mean, people do. People really do come up.
Yeah,
and because I mean, cartooning is hard. You have to have artistic talent as well as a, individual striking comedic voice, but like it is a thing. The New Yorker, you don't suddenly like generally get a 50,000 word piece in out of the blue, but people do get cartoons in who are, Zoe C., recently Pulitzer nominated. No. She was working as a family lawyer in Canada and like decided to start drawing cartoons on the side because she loved to do it. And now she's like a full-time cartoonist illustrator.
Adding to that, some of the things that we do in the submission process, especially at King, is we think about that engagement, right? And going back to the whole fish analogy and so forth, I look at your audiences and where you are. So I don't care if you're on Instagram or if you're on Facebook or if you're on Reddit and so forth, but I look at how people are engaging with your content and how successful you've been at driving fish. Or cultivating your fish or finding your fish. And that is always a positive standpoint in submission for me. So just food for thought, like as you think through submission process or who you're going to go to or, hopefully Comics Kingdom. But things like that aid. But it's really not do you have 6 channels and are you at 100,000 followers on each? I really don't care about that.
No, proof of consistent work for me. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to have that many followers, but if I, like, you submit one cartoon and I'm like, that was really funny, and then I search for you online and I see that, like, it is not a fluke, it is, you have been doing this.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have that many followers, but you are followed by other cartoonists who I respect, like, that also sort of like the
Yeah.
feeling like you, yeah, you're engaged in the community and you, like, know other work that's being made.
Make us laugh. Right?
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the battle right there. I mean, I love this cartoon to death, and I'm going to plug him right now, Jason. Willie Black. I love a darling. When we found him, he had something like maybe 200 followers, but his art just shone through. His content was what it was, and so, you know, that's just a testament again to what I was saying. Finding your fish.
We have one last question from Dave.
Is there a danger of sharing too much on social media? I always feel this weird thing about, no, I mean in terms of, I mean, certain people pay for our cartoons. And I always wonder, like, you know, you got newspapers or magazines that are paying for the cartoon for subscriber base, and then you're just sharing it out for free to all these other people who haven't paid. So I always kind of like, where do your respective organizations fall on this? Is it now to the point where just put it out there? We love the audience, but I feel bad for the people who are subscribing to the magazine, who are subscribing. I personally try never to post the cartoons that's running that day. I mean, I feel this obligation to the people who are paying money to, you know, that forms the basis of your income. So I don't know, where do you fall on that whole thing?
So can I say I'm super thankful that you have that in mind.
It's a good question.
So me as a platform, a representative of Comics Kingdom, King Features and so forth, it's an interesting dilemma, right? Because we do want you to share your content. You should. It's your content, and it's amazing stuff. And you shouldn't be beholden to having it just behind this wall. But I go back to what I said before, when you're on social media, knowing your strategy of why you're there, right? When you're finding your fish, what do you want to do with them? Are you driving likes or are you driving money? They're not the same. And so, you know, to the point that, you know, maybe you're syndicated or you're not, or wherever you're posting your content, that's only subscriber content, right? I think there's a reason for that. You want to monetize and you want to grow that base. But you don't want to do double work, I understand, right? That's a lot of work. So what I would say is that you preview and you drive back. One of the things that I love about carousels, right, and we talked about this last night, I love about the carousel, specifically Instagram or TikTok, or Facebook does this to some degree as well, is give them 1-2 panels and then point them back to where you want them to go, right? And just showcase that this is my talent, but you know, you have to come here for this. And that's again because the platforms aren't gonna do it for you. They're gonna charge you to get to everyone to then pay you, right? So you just gotta figure out that mechanism. But if at minimum you can't do that, I would say stagger. So where you're making your money, let that go first. Well, I deal with it with creators all the time. It's like, hey, if you're a Sunday strip, don't post your new content every Sunday and then tell them that you can read new stuff over here where I'm gonna, you know, charge you for it. So it's just that sort of interesting dilemma and balance.
Yeah, definitely don't post it before it's been published.
That too.
That happens more often
It
than
happens.
you think. No, but also, yeah, I mean, and I think I agree with everything you said, and I think that, like, even if you are posting it the same day that it comes out, tagging the New Yorker or suggesting that people check out, like, New Yorker Cartoons Instagram account sort of spreads the wealth, not just to the institution, but to other cartoonists who are being published that week or, you know, who have been published. And honestly, like, as an institution, sometimes it's nice to have the work that we are publishing reach a different audience on your social channel. So it's, you know, it's not just like, oh no, you stole eyes away from the thing on our website or in the print magazine. It's like, okay, maybe your followers now are like, I'm interested in seeing more of these and I want to subscribe. So I don't know. I don't think you should be too afraid. I mean, yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally about your strat on a personal level and what you're doing with your strip and how you want to grow that audience, right? Do you want to monetize that audience as a key goal? Then there's going to be different things you have to do, right? And do Do you want to grow that audience on the platform and get them the exposure and so forth? That's also different levers that you're going to have to pull. But it's a straddling act between the two. So they unfortunately don't go hand in hand, right? And you just have to pick that balance and what's right for you.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, don't worry so much about the institutions. I think if you behave in such a way that the institution is displeased, the institution will let you know. And like, you are out there, you are out there doing all this work and trying to promote yourself, and like that is what matters. Like doing that in a way that feels like healthy and productive for you is far more important than I think there's like a lot of neurosis when it comes to cartoonists worrying about offending the you know the people who are paying them money, but truly like we will tell you.
You'll get an email.
Yeah, you'll get an email. Believe me, you'll get an email.
Yeah, you'll get an email.
That is a great place to end on. Thank you both, Emma and Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. Alex Garcia, Emma Allen, and thank you for your great questions.